4, 3.
We'll do it live!
Now we're live! Erin Kennedy. The general craziness of it, the impact on your life.
We have gone through so many stories and we said, you know what? This should not be kept to the two of us.
But it
Happy
shouldn't.
New Year, Megan.
Hi, Erin. This is our first back in 2023.
Yeah, it's bananas, isn't it? I can't believe it. And the holidays were crazy. How were your holidays?
They were good. I mean, it's like, it just feels like a blur though. Like it just goes so fast.
Yeah.
But that's because I was living it like a normal human being where I was like off and I could take a vacation after and there was no problem with that. You know what I mean? Like most of the world, I think, takes a little bit of a lull where absolutely nothing happens between like Christmas and New Year's. And now we're able to enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
For the
Yeah,
first
like
time
normal
ever.
humans. That's good.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. I liked
I'm on
it.
soft focus again. Yeah, did you find that you were less angry with people too?
Yeah, much less angry because I wasn't resentful, like living in a resentful state of like, ugh, Christmas is coming up, but I have to work 47 days to get it. And then 47 days after it, like that just puts you in a crappy frame of mind, I think.
I actually got an email from the bosses that said, yes, the office is open, but we encourage everybody, or we expect everybody who can be off to be off. Like if you are essential and you need to be here, thank you. But if you have no business being here, then go home.
And you know what? I feel like when you give people the ability to have like a break, focus yourself.
Yeah.
When you give people the ability to have like a break when you can and when it's not going to hurt business and whatever, then you should, but the problem is news never stops, clearly,
I had the chance to speak with a lot of current and former TV people too over the holidays. I mentioned this to you, one of my girlfriends from Rhode Island who is wrapping up a very long and wonderful career on the East Coast. She'll be on in a while to talk to us, but I think a lot of people are reaching a tipping point, and I keep hearing about it as, just kind of in the fray over there, but then also personal stories of people who are reaching out to me and to you.
Yeah, same, absolutely the same thing. It's like you reach a point in your life, and I think personally it happens after you have children, or if you've been in it through, something 15 plus years, but for the most part, you're usually, if you're going to get married and have kids, you're probably going to do it sometime in that same time frame. But so I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but it definitely starts to impact you to the point where you can't do it anymore. And I think for us, a lot of that was the sleep deficit that we had to live in for so many years. It is something that at some point you just can't do anymore. And for many years, like if somebody asked you, Erin, if they said, how do you do it waking up at 2:00 in the morning? What would you say? What did you used to say?
I always had a pat answer because that was always everybody's kind of first question was, what time do you get? 2:00? Oh my gosh, how do you do that? And my pat line was always, if you're getting up before the sun comes up, it's all the same. But that is not true. But it's what I would say, because when people come up to you, they're nice and kind, and you don't want to be like, it's really hard. Can we talk about it?
Can you hold me while I cry? Yeah. But like,
I'm fixing my camera while we talk because this is bothering me that it's
for me, I would say I would usually say something along the lines of, oh, I'm fine. You get used to it, which you don't. And then I would say, oh, I'll just sleep when I'm dead, which at that point,
you're almost 1 foot in the grave.
Dude, it feels like it. And I feel like you could be speeding more quickly there than you want to if you continue to do that to your body. So I was telling you earlier that all over Instagram, all over TikTok, all over everywhere, there's this movement to get healthier and to do things that are right for your body, maybe a little bit more of that whole ancestral thing or whatever. So take the diet out of it. Human beings were meant to sleep. And for the most part, we were meant to sleep while it's dark outside. So for some times of the year, that's 12 plus hours for many of us in the Northern Hemisphere, especially up as far as we are. And it's just something that we got away from because we had lights, because we had whatever. But when you have a shift that's waking you up at 2:00 in the morning, and then you've got a regular life that hits after that, you're 100% not even getting half of the sleep that you're supposed to get. I think I lived on a regular basis somewhere between 4 to 6 hours of sleep. And I think for many of us, it's just something that we got away from because we had lights, because we had whatever. But when you have a shift that's waking you up at 2:00 in the morning, and then you've got a regular life that hits after that, you're 100% not even getting half of the sleep that you're supposed to get. I think I lived on a regular basis somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. And 6 would be a really good day. Vast majority, I would say between 4 and 5 for me for years.
Well, and I remember, I mean, we had bedrolls in our little cubbies because there were so many days when you would have to stay late or be on early. Of course, there's a lot of events that turn into very long days. I mean, the World Series, we were in at midnight that night. But in addition to that, just also like community events. I remember, Megan, wasn't it when you went to the Bears game one time where Lance dropped you off at the studio at like 10 p.m.?
Yes.
And you spent the night there so that you
I
could
just
be at
slept
work.
on the floor because I
Yeah.
was like, I think it was later. It may have been closer to 11, but fact of the matter is it would have been almost midnight when I got home and I would have had to get in the shower pretty much and turn back around. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to sleep on the floor. And that's not the only time that I did that because I lived almost an hour away from the studio. So if I was in Chicago and that's what, and it was late, it was like, there's not enough time. There's not even enough time to go home. You don't even have enough time really to rent a hotel because like, you're not even going to stay there. You know what I mean? Like screw it, whatever. You're just going to knock out, like basically like feel like you're slipping into a coma death for those like 2 hours and then get back up and go. But I can remember many a snowstorm where not only then did you have the drive time longer than normal, but you had to get up because we were going on earlier. But what I want to talk about today though, Erin, is like we've talked about our schedule and like all that stuff. But I know that I had actual physical symptoms looking back on it that I for sure felt that I do not feel now. And it had to be related to like living in that perpetual state of sleep deprivation. I know it. So
Sleep deprivation and adrenal fatigue. You're getting all of the wrong hormones are firing in your body at all the wrong times, and it ages you and taxes your organs and your body.
Yes. I have talked to many people who in TV were working a morning shift, got out of TV, and you look at a picture 5 years later and they actually look younger than they did when they were working that shift. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Well, I
mean,
kind of feel the same way in some ways. Yeah.
Me too. But all right, so there I pulled up a website where it says like the things that can happen to you if you are sleep deprived. So say yay
You can
or
share your
nay.
screen, Meg.
How do I do that?
On the bottom, hit present.
Oh, funsies. Hold on one second.
Sorry, I didn't know you were coming with visual aids. Otherwise, I would have told you ahead of time.
I am a visual aid extraordinaire expertise person. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Now, how unshare? I don't know. Can you see it?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so forgetfulness. Did you have it? Yay or nay?
Oh gosh, yes. Yes.
I did too. And in fact, recently we were talking, Lance and the kids and I were talking about some movie that we had watched on a vacation, whatever. I don't even know where it was. I didn't remember the whole thing that we were talking about. Like everyone was completely clear on it. And I had almost no memory of it. And I was like, what the heck? Because I have a really good memory. In that case, no, not even a little bit. Okay. Skin issues.
Yeah, my skin has definitely improved since I've left TV.
Same.
Do you remember, Megan? Do you remember when I had and this was I was relatively ish new, and I got that what was it called? Periocular dermatitis. Do you remember that? And I didn't want to call out because I had to fill in for Marissa because she was getting married. And so I was filling in for her, and it was a holiday. And I knew that I didn't want to call out on a holiday because they would be like, oh, she's just calling out because it's a holiday.
She
And so
wants to be off on whatever.
I came in, and also I felt very guilty because we shared all the makeup brushes and we didn't know what it was at that point. I was like, sorry, guys. I have no idea what this rash on my face is.
I
Deal
mean,
with it. Yeah.
but like, so yeah, skin, I mean, I think like my skin was drier. I just looked exhausted all the time. That was because I was exhausted. But I think like skin tone is better because you're sleeping more and your body's getting to like fix itself and recharge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Okay. Next is weight gain. I'll go down before I go over.
I don't, to be honest, I never really struggled with my weight. So
No, you didn't. I never was horrible. Like I would go up or down, 10 pounds or something like that. I don't know that it was related to that because I could still do that now if I wanted to.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
more like, am I working out how I'm supposed to? Am I doing the things I'm supposed to be doing? But also, we were in a career where you're going to focus on not having
Yeah,
a major
on
weight
how you
problem. if you
look.
can.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, it says low sex drive. I just don't even like remember being awake at the same
I don't
time.
remember having sex. I had 3 babies somewhere in there, but I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
no
yeah,
memory
me
of
too.
anything else.
Me too, but yeah, that one's a whatever. Like half the time, I mean, but did Matt go to bed after you? Like you didn't go to sleep at the same time?
Yeah, no, actually, and that talk I mean, that was tough on the relationship anyway, but
Yeah.
no, yeah, that's it and stuff. In fact, Matt and I were talking recently just about he said, I feel like you were 100% present when you were on air. You were there and you were 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I think like I only had so much in my tank and I would push it towards, I'm present and I can be here and I have the energy. And when I came home, it was like I was a shell of a man.
Same. I can remember getting home. Like there were days where I would try to work out and get home, and then like try to steal a nap before the kids got off the bus. And I had literally there were days where I was like, I have 7 minutes, and I would fall asleep in those 7 minutes. Like most of the
Mhm.
time now, if I have 7 minutes and I want to take a little nap, I'm like, that's stupid. It's only 7 minutes, or it's only an hour or whatever. I'll
Well,
just, you know,
and in all of the sleep studies that we've read too, some people who do the shift split their sleep. They'll do the 4 hours and 4 hours,
I could
but
never.
they'll tell you, doctors will tell you, unless it's back to back 8 hours, it is affecting your health. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Um, we'll go with respiratory issues, Erin, for 500.
Yeah, I definitely win that for 500, if not 1,000. I'll take the daily double on that, please, Megan. I had, chronic sinus infections.
I remember that. And you like there were I don't even want to say weeks. I mean like months to a year or more where you were like constantly like coughing and just like
Mhm,
not good right in
mhm.
there.
I remember there was one time I had a sinus infection, and there was one of the events, one of the big ones. Was it the Urban League, I think? And I went to my doctor and I said, I feel terrible. I have to make it to this event though. Give me something that will animate a corpse. And she gave me steroids.
Did it help?
She gave me a bottle of steroids. I ended up not going to that event,
Yeah, I
thankfully,
remember that.
but
Yeah.
I did end up using them later. Yeah, no, I felt terrible too. And then, do you remember? So our director, I felt so bad from them because we would wear, they're called lapel mics right here. And so all morning I would be blowing my nose. So it's essentially like having the director's ear being right here, and you're just like,
Snot. Oh yeah. No, no, no. I mean cough, you're hacking into like
right.
I mean for sure. And do you remember what used to happen to me? So from so many years, even when I would just have like a little cold, okay, nothing that you would even stick. Well, now in the COVID days, maybe it's different, but prior to that, if you had a little cold, you were just going into work because you didn't even feel that bad, just a little runny nose or whatever. Well, whatever it was, combined with me using my like projecting TV voice, which I don't feel like I changed my voice to be different, but it's louder and you're making sure you're heard and you're
Yeah.
stressing things, whatever. I lose my voice to this day every time I get a cold, to the point where the cold isn't even anything, but my voice is gone. Cause I think I
Mhm,
weakened something in here for all those years of like
mhm,
overusing it and not doing
mhm.
the right thing. I'm basically like Barbara Streisand.
Well, then you should stay on because that sounds
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
But I mean, it was bad. Okay. And then the final one, I think that's the final one, is heart problems, Erin.
Yeah, I mean, we used to laugh about our arrhythmias.
We did.
Oh, there's
Increased
more
risk
though.
and weakened immune
Diabetes risk.
system.
Oh, then we're talking about risks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, talk about Megan.
Or like the heart
When was
problems.
it that you got your whoop?
I got my Whoop. So that's this, everybody. This black thing right here on my wrist. It doesn't do steps and all that stuff, but it does tell you essentially your recovery by looking at your heart rate variability, by looking at your heart rate in general while you're sleeping, and also by looking at like the amount of sleep that you're having and your respiratory rate. Okay, like I got it because I was hypochondriac during COVID, and it was supposed to be something that would help you like detect it. And you know me, hypochondriac like times a million.
Yeah, let's sidebar with Ebola later. Go ahead.
Okay. But in hindsight, I am so happy, I think, that I did not have this when I was on TV because this will take into account the amount of sleep you're getting. All right, I had this and I went back to TV for like that 1 week a little while ago, and it was red recoveries every day because it was back to that 4 hours of sleep. On a regular basis, I know that I get somewhere between like almost 7 to 8 something hours of sleep typically. I have no idea what I would have seen on this Whoop when I was still working that shift for as many years as I did. Like, I'm curious and also glad I don't know.
So, I struggled with insomnia for my whole professional
Yes.
TV career. And there were a lot of apps which were like, same thing, track your sleep and do this and that. And I was like, I can't because I know it's going to get even worse in my head.
You just can't know. You just
I
don't
don't
want
want
to
to know.
know.
I don't
Uh-huh.
want to know.
Uh-huh. And back to that heart thing too, like you remember both of us. There was a particular time where I was like, oh, it feels like my heart's like beating weird, like offbeat or whatever. And I was like, what the heck? Well, then I said something to Aaron and you were having the same thing. But then when I rest, and now I haven't had it since I quit TV.
Right.
I don't know what was happening. If there are any medical professionals out there that can let us know. It was never anything that was detected by my doctor, but because it wasn't regular enough to be a thing, but like I for sure felt it when I was working and on that shift, like especially when I was super exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that affects how you live your life outside of the station. And I think, like I said before, Megan, we were very good at what we did and we were professionals. And so we were always going to be 100% at work. But it was when you came home and it was kind of like everything else fell apart,
I mean, Aaron, you've got a video where that you can
Yes,
like
I do. And I just
100%
uploaded
see
it
that.
to our YouTube. So this was me on the couch. And remember in our last episode, Megan and I talked about supine parenting. And this
Yes.
was,
How old was Elliot here?
he was about 8 months probably.
Okay. He wanted you to read a story to him.
Right. And this was me not reading.
Elliot, what are you reading? Elliot really wants mom to read.
You're trying so hard, but you just can't.
And just sick as a dog,
It's so sad, Aaron, because I did the same. There were many times where I would just be like, oh my God, they want me to read and I just want to go to bed. It's like I missed out on a lot of like magical moments, just trying to get through and survive. But literally, like you were sick all the time and you were too exhausted to hang out with your kid. I know, like you were there technically, but not there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There were a couple times at work. Same thing with you, though. With me and my sinus infections, where after the morning show, they would say, just go home. We can't even understand what you're saying. And then you too, with your voice being lost.
Oh yeah. Like that. I got sent home many, 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 many times. And I always said that was the best way to be sick because I felt great.
Also, if you worked a half day, then it didn't count as a day off.
Yeah.
If you went home sick.
I know. So sometimes I was like, let me at least try to make it through the half day. Maybe they'll send me home.
Yeah.
And it happens many a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just looking back on it. And in fact, I was listening to a podcast recently. And it was a guy who is a medical doctor now, but had been a Navy SEAL. And so when he got his medical degree, he went back to treat, they call it like the community of Navy SEALs, because he knew what they were dealing with, how they were dealing with it, the kind of things they were putting their body through, et cetera. And one of the biggest issues that he found was the lack of sleep for these men who are out on missions. Obviously, what they're doing is 50 times more important and more dangerous than what we ever thought about doing. But the lack of sleep was the same. And many members of that community were having to turn to Ambien to kind of knock themselves out. But that in turn messes up all kinds of hormones for you. So they had to go through a serious, like almost program to kind of figure out how important sleep was. And I think it's interesting because if you look at it now, that guy's recommendation was instead of doing anything, like if you're going to try to like be in super great shape, you're actually better off sleeping until your body wants you to wake up than you would be getting up and having a crappy workout because sleep is that important for you.
So I have two things I want to say. Number one, I almost feel like we've buried the lead here, which is the fact that sleep deprivation is a form of torture.
I mean, in POW camps, right?
Yeah. So it is so hard. And our hearts go out to everybody who has to work third shift
Yes.
or, true overnights, which producers have
Hard.
to do.
It's
And
so
then
hard.
the other story that I want to share, this might offend some animal lovers, but stick with me, okay? Stick with me.
Okay, Erin.
So when I first started struggling with insomnia was my first market, which was Lubbock, Texas, where I worked mornings. And I lived in this kind of nice apartment complex. And I was trying to fall asleep at, I think, 4 p.m. or something. And
Which was admirable because there's no way in hell you did that later.
no, but yeah, it's funny when, I mean, Matt and I were together, but I was single. And so it's not like I had to go out or anything and meet
Right.
people. So going to bed at 4 p.m. was kind of okay.
Right.
But there was a house across the street and there was this dog that would not stop barking. And if anybody struggles with trying to get to sleep and there's a repetitive sound out there, there's
you're
just
done.
nothing else that drives you crazier. And then you're already sleep deprived. So you're just going nuts. So you mentioned the sleep pills. So I had a prescription for Ambien and everything else that existed under the sun. So I walk to my fridge and get a ball of cheese, stick an Ambien in it, walk across the street, throw it over the fence to the dog, and then go back home and go to bed.
Every day?
No, just that one day.
Did it work?
It did.
Did the dog survive?
Yes.
So I
Dog
guess
was
it was
fine.
okay.
Dog got a good night's sleep. So did I. It was a
Oh my
win-win.
God, though. But Erin, it's one of those things where I think what that speaks to is the actual desperation that you feel about whether or not you're going to get enough sleep. There was always a point in the night. For me, it was like 7:00, where if it was 7:00 and I wasn't home, and at least with the possibility of going to bed, I would start to get like twitchy, like, oh crap. But the thing that I just think is crazy is how many physical effects, and I just kind of buried it all down. Like because you couldn't afford to worry about it and think about it because you were staying in the job anyway, and then you were going to do it anyway. And so you just can't harp on it. You just keep, you just plow ahead. But in hindsight, oh my God, all the things. I mean, I ended up at the hospital one time. I think I was so exhausted. At this point, I was doing a lot of hits for the network too. And so I was waking up even earlier because I had to do those.
Before I was there? Because I don't remember you being in the hospital.
I didn't get admitted. So you might.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't
Finish your
remember
story.
when that one. Anyway, I was doing a ton of hits for the network. So instead of waking up at 2, I had to wake up at 12:15. So I was waking up at 12:15.
That's a big difference.
It is, but I had to build the graphics at this point and then record the hit and then still do my regular stuff. So I was getting up at 12:15 to get there and do it. Well, after, I don't know, let's call it 3-4 months of that, one day I went to work out, came home, headache was insane. And I told you I'm a hypochondriac. So I'm like, I gotta go to the hospital. It was bad enough though that I was really concerned. And I ended up having a CT scan and a CT scan with dye and all this stuff, to make sure that I was okay. And I in hindsight, that was not about the headache. That was about, you really start to feel so awful at some point that one extra little thing just knocked you off the ledge. And you're like, I think I'm dying, literally.
Well, and how many doctors did you have tell you need to get more sleep?
All of them. My blood pressure was also going high for a period of time there. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember. That was, I don't know when. My blood pressure's fine now, by the way. Has been ever
Or
since.
the doctors who would say, well, your problem is the fact that you're switching to a normal schedule on the weekends. And so you really should be waking up at the same time on the weekends so that your body is just consistent. You're like, really? You're going to have me wake up at 2 a.m. on a Saturday?
And sit there and stare at what, darkness?
Right. And wait for my kids to wake up 4 hours, 5 hours later. Yeah,
No.
I would fire those doctors.
You would never. Oh yeah, but when I went to the doctor for my regular checkup, and my blood pressure was high, and so then hypochondriac Megan then of course is checking it all the time, which was making it worse and worse and worse. I would worry about it at night, whatever. And then I went back to the doctor again 3 months later to check it, and it was still high. And she looked at me and she goes, Megan? I'm like, yeah. She's like, you just need to sleep. And then I went on vacation and I was a normal sleeper for a while and everything was fine. And then it would take a while before that deprivation so I could catch up with you. And then it would start to ramp back up again.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Well, and we had talked about before how you and I actually slept more when we were on maternity leave with little babies.
Yeah,
Like
that's the
everybody
most
was
sleep
like,
I
"Oh,
got.
you're a new parent. Welcome to the no sleep club." I was like, "This is no sleep. This is awesome."
Right. I'm like, I'm sleeping like 5 hours a night. Then I wake up with the
5
kids
hours
for a little bit,
more.
then I go back to bed for 2. Like, this
Yeah.
is clutch.
Totally
Because
fine.
we're in training for it. That and traveling to Europe or wherever you may have jet lag, I don't even feel that. It's like, oh, I was used to that feeling. I know how to move through this. Like, we're fine.
Sludge.
That's how I would say it feels. If you have been lucky enough to never have a schedule where you have to wake up like that on a consistent basis and like, or be, just basically without sleep for too long, that's how it feels, like jet lag. You can't catch up. You kind of have a little dull headache. You just don't feel good. You're trying, but you can't push through. You're like walking through a little bit of like fog. That's it.
Mhm.
100%.
All the time.
Yes.
Yes.
You want to call me out for my Ebola issue?
Sure. So, the thing with working in the news is that you have to report on all of the big health stories that are going on. Oh my gosh, we could even talk about how nuts we were with COVID though too, before anybody knew like what it was. But yeah, so Ebola was. I can't remember what year that was. That was 2014. It was 2014, right? 2015.
Yeah, I was going to Belgium for my trip. Yes.
So you bought hospital grade sanitizer. This was before like hand sanitizer.
Let me
was
set the
invented.
stage for anyone who's all fellow hypochondriac. Okay. Ebola was bad. There was like somebody who had gotten on a plane from somewhere in West Africa and came over. Remember, it was in Houston. It had come to the United States at this point. So it was at a fever pitch of being in the news because there must have been nothing else going on also. So
Fever pitch is always the news though. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
it was the thing of that particular month. And it was in everywhere. Everyone talking about Ebola, the symptoms, how you can die, the risk of death, where is it? And we're going behind the scenes and we're watching people clean stuff off with bleach. And, you remember if you were alive, which if you're watching this, I'm assuming you were. So we're watching that all the time. Then I recall seeing that there were a ton of flights that were coming through Europe and going to America. And that's what had happened in this particular incident where someone had left West Africa and had arrived in Houston in this particular case. And so, of course, I, in my infinite hypochondriac wisdom, decided to track the flight to its original destination and stopping point and realized that they had gone right through Brussels every time. And that's where we were flying in. So then I was paranoid. Okay. So Erin is right. I got online. I bought hospital grade bleach wipes, full blown N95 masks,
Which was
gloves.
before they were a thing.
They were not a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I had to get them at like a hardware store or something at that point. Gloves. And I forbade Lance from going to the bathroom on the airplane for 9 hours.
International trip. Right.
I'm washing hands everywhere. I'm wiping down the seats. Like in hindsight, if Ebola was there, it was going to get me. I'm pretty sure, but it wasn't there. And
Did Lance obey?
I think he maybe just didn't have to pee, or else he didn't want to deal with the repercussions of peeing in that bathroom and going back and trying to sit next to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but I made it all the way to Europe and all the way back without peeing. And then we stopped at my parents' house to take a shower and dump our clothes in the washing machine before hugging our kids. I mean, it was intense.
Did you get Ebola, Megan?
Not that I know of.
Did anybody else on that flight?
Well, I don't know. I haven't tracked it. Although it's possible.
Oh, I'm sure you have. I'm sure you would have.
But
You
I would
known.
have. No one did. But that's another thing that for me it was a manifestation of not sleeping enough. Like your weird things that come out
Get weirder. Yeah.
get weirder. Yeah. I'm not a hypochondriac now all the time as much.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
I mean, isn't there something that you feel like you're worse at then that you're not now?
I mean, the insomnia was, but that was, I mean, that's so connected to this, to the thing.
Sleep fine now?
So what?
Are you okay now? Do you sleep okay now?
You know, it's funny. I almost feel like insomnia is like almost like being an anorexic where it's something you always deal with. It's always there. So I just now, I know how to deal with it, but not having to wake up at 2 is the most important thing.
Yeah, because how many alarms did you used to set?
Only 2.
Oh, I had 7.
One
had-
and one 5 minutes later. That's still all I do now, but I would obsessively check it before I went to bed. Like, is it on?
Yes.
Is it on? Is it on?
Obsessively. Yeah. Like an actual tick. I would check all 7 of my alarms.
That hasn't gone away. I actually still do that now.
Yeah. Some things you can't lose forever. But like, yeah, I had a regular like desk alarm thing. And then I had my cell phone set for 6 different things. And I would only set it for an odd time. So like if I had to wake up at 2:00, I would either set it for 1:59 or 2:01.
Makes it a little bit easier. So I just want to say happy
Now
New
I'm just
Year.
looking like an absolute nut.
Yeah, well, you're an absolute nut. But we love you anyway.
Okay, thank you.
We had 2 weeks of content that we kind of just I went way back into the archives that hadn't
Yep.
aired and pulled them out. And so we do have not our year. We have guests lined up ahead of us and some really wonderful people who we're going to bring on. And 2023 is our year for actually having a better game plan with this and who we talk to and what we talk about. Because there's so much going on in the news world. I even thought we could do like a 2023 predictions for journalism thing.
Yeah.
Would be worthwhile.
That would be interesting as well. And I think a lot of what I want to do too is peel that curtain back because and we have done that to a large degree, but I think there are people who have questions that are coming up. The more we talk about, the more questions I seem to be getting. I feel like we're shedding a light on a lot of this, but there's more and more and more and more and more questions coming out. So I think I'd like to do as well, like a Q&A episode of you guys send us in questions and we answer those questions because there are a lot of things that we just take for granted or assume that everybody knows. And I think it's because we lived it for so long and they really don't know and they're wondering. So.
But to address the question that keeps popping up, Megan and I are not going back into TV.
I like sleeping. I prefer not to be a rabid hypochondriac. Erin would like to keep her respiratory issues at bay. I mean, it's one of those
gross.
things.
Oh, I should find that promo that we taped where like I sound totally nasal.
Oh, it's there somewhere.
Yeah, I have it. I have it on my Facebook. I'll pull it up.
Okay. You'll have to get it.
All right, Megan, everybody, please like and subscribe for some great stuff for 2023.
I can't
Anything
believe
else, Megan?
2023. It's an odd number. You know, I like that.
Yes, it'll be a good year. All right. Bye, Megan. Bye, everybody.
Bye.